Consequence Podcast Network.
This episode brought to you by Nick B.
Nick B.
Fun fact about Nick B. He got arrested in Britain.
For what?
He violated his quarantine order to get fish and chips.
Oh.
What? Hey, fun fact about fish and chips in Britain. They're not fries. They're chips. Wait, what are they? They're chips. They're not chips. They're fries.
Yeah,
right?
chips are French fries. Yeah.
Fries are called chips.
Yeah.
Topsy-turvy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope it was all worth it, Nick B.
That's not a real fun fact, is it, right?
That's a real fun. That's 100. He's Nick behind bars.
Oh, no. This episode also brought to you by Ryan.
Ryan. Hey, Ryan. So I was very angry at Ryan earlier today because Zoom wasn't fucking working. But Ryan saved the day by reminding me that Google Hangouts exists.
Yeah,
So
there is a
thank you,
free
Ryan.
option. Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
We are. So this episode truly brought to you by Ryan because she is the one that helped me find it in my heart to remember that I have another option. So
Ryan is me.
I just need to get Ryan on Zoom and figure out what the fuck is going on there. So.
We need Ryan tech
right.
support. That's what we need. Ryan, if you can help us out, we would greatly appreciate it. This episode also brought to you by Matt. Mikey?
Hey, Matt.
Orca Borca.
He said it was okay, so I'm leaving it in.
Oh, we did say it was okay?
Yeah, we
asked him
literally
permission.
asked him on Twitter. And when I say we, I mean Mikey did. And I said, if he says it's all right, Mikey, I'll leave it in. And he responded with, it's fine, let's do this.
Did he say it was Orke Borke?
It's Orca Borca. He said they love Swedish chef.
And of course, Matt wants us to give you guys Swedish facts every week, as well as Swedish chef impressions. So this week, I'm going to give you guys the other half of the Swedish phone line. Remember that one I did a few weeks back?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah, so a part of that, and the reason they did that is because the Swedish Tourist Association loves finding new ways to market the country to people from other countries to try and get people to come to Sweden, right?
Yeah, it's like their job.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one I didn't mention that week was At Sweden was an initiative on Twitter where each week a citizen would take over their Twitter account and tweet things that interested them about their country, life, and work.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so they would literally turn over the credentials to their At Sweden Twitter account to just a citizen of the country and
just
let
a
them tweet
random?
about whatever. Yeah.
Was it like a lottery?
I guess you'd probably have to sign up saying you were interested, and then it probably was a lottery system.
Could you imagine if we did that in America?
Oh, no, it
No,
would be a
I was
nightmare.
just thinking that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mikey, we did do it in America. It's called the presidency.
that's true.
Tweeters would also interact with the public and answer questions about the country as they saw it. So that not only would they allow them to tweet, they would be the person responding to the tweet. The initiative ran for 7 years, and more than 350 Swedish citizens had the chance to represent their country to the world.
Oh, I want to do that.
That is awesome,
Except
right?
not about America.
Right.
I want to move somewhere else to do it. Yay. Well, thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Matt, for regaling us with all of your fun facts that I had to
You know,
look up.
Matt, if you want to tell us stuff you love about Sweden, put it in the Facebook group.
Yeah, absolutely. We now return you to another episode of The Patreonicals.
Okay. Isaac has surrounded Mammaltopia with his army of robots, Mad Max people, and all this other stuff.
Wait, there's more robots than just the Tristan bot?
Yeah, he's brought out some cyborg type things.
Okay.
They look like Terminators, but they're not working great because it's still like present day. They kind of suck.
They're like the Boston Dynamic robots that just walk around carrying shit.
There's a lot of armed people, and they brought enough stuff for like a big siege. And Isaac gets on the loudspeaker, and he's like, Eddie, bro.
He's very formal when he talks over loudspeakers, yes.
We have to unite the people under the strength of Thunderdome. It's the way to keep humanity alive.
Right.
And Eddie was like, no.
Yeah, isn't Thunderdome bad?
Well, I mean, it's all a perspective.
Yeah, it
but
depends on
kinda.
it depends on how you view the world, really.
Depends on if you're evil or not, I guess.
Yeah,
So
exactly. No one thinks they're the bad guy.
That's unfortunately true.
Michael has set up. There's like all the people with shoulder pads and rifles because he's Isaac's big general now. So Michael is he's in it to win it, and
You gotta be.
Yeah, I get it.
Michael had the big plan of bringing a bunch of like drones to like drop grenades in Mammaltopia over the big wall.
Yeah, over the wall they built. Yeah.
It's an army of
No.
animals protecting a bunch of like innocent people who have gathered there because, you know, the zombie cannibals are still around.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Michael gets Tristram out of the car, who's also a Terminator cyborg with a gun arm, and then an antenna grows out of his shoulder.
Uh-oh.
And he starts controlling all the drones with the grenades, and there's like hundreds of them, and they launch toward the wall. And then Eddie was like, we trained for this. I have an army of monkeys for this. So Eddie sends the army of monkeys, and they fling poo at all the drones and crash most of them.
Oh my God. They crash most of the drones with feces.
What have they been eating?
Wow.
There's explosions everywhere. There's some inside Mammaltopia, but some outside. And this is just the first skirmish of the Battle of Mammaltopia.
Which side is good?
I mean, it depends on your view. If you believe that every legal dispute should be settled in a fight to the death, then you're on Thunderdomington team, right?
Which side flings poop?
Mammaltopia.
Mammaltopia throws shit, Jen. And that's the side I'm on.
They're tired of taking shit, Might as well throw it back.
So then we cut to the motorcycle with sidecar. It's got Mickey Mac and his koala driving, and Matthew is on there. And they come to a small town, which is under attack by a group, like a small group of zombie cannibals, and there's innocent people there. Matthew's regained all his memory, and he's like uncontrollably sobbing, mourning the world that is lost or whatever. And
I hear you.
Yeah, Mickey Mac wants to save the people of that little town to make up for the souls of all the enemies he tortured, and the koala's like totally up for it. And they both use 6-shooters like the Old West. They shoot a bunch of zombies, and then like they go into town, and then what happens? Kate falls from the sky.
How?
She was abducted by aliens.
Oh my! I completely forgot she was abducted by aliens.
We don't know if they're aliens or not. She falls down, and she is like, "Hey, I woke up just now. I just gained my consciousness, and I was in Thunderdome, and I remember bright lights, but I know I'm supposed to stay with y'all for whatever you're doing." And then Matthew's like, "Well, we're supposed to go on to Myrtle Beach." And they're like, okay. When the small town ends up feeding them and giving them fuel and stuff. And the small town was like, look, we don't go towards Myrtle Beach because that place is...
It's a tourist trap. Have you ever been there? Oh, it's the worst.
Lots of people are going missing there. And it's all terrible. And there's like really bad rumors. But they're like, we're going to go anyway because Kate's like a super cool psychic person. And then this koala shoots gun. And Matthew was like, I just need to go. I need answers. I feel like answers are that way.
All right.
They spend the night there, refuel. And then now Kate, she decides to drive. And then Matthew holds onto the back of Kate. And then Mickey Mac and the koala are in the sidecar.
Why do the aliens or whatever take Kate to Myrtle Beach? What's going to happen at the Battle of Mammaltopia? How much shit do the monkeys still have left to throw? Find out next week on another episode of The Patreonicals. This episode finally brought to you by Chris.
Chris just wants you to know that you are not alone. And I know everything is really stressful right now, and it seems like there's a new crazy patriarchal type story unfolding before our eyes every day. Yeah. But you're really not alone. And if you want to reach out, there are people here that see you and hear you, and the Facebook group can be a safe place. And I want to go give that pro tip. If you don't like Facebook, but you still want to be a part of that group, just create a new account and don't friend anybody. And then the only thing you see is the group. Because it really is a great space. Like, everybody is really positive and caring, and people are talking about the struggles that they're going through and fun stuff too.
Yeah, we have conversations every day that are horror related, and some other things that are going on too.
And we talk about movies too.
Yeah.
Occasionally, yeah. Yeah, so Chris just wants you to remind you, we see you, we hear you, and we love you. So thank you, Chris. And thank you, everybody in the Facebook group that makes that group so amazing too.
Guys, I'm getting a sneaking suspicion that the theme music is actually just an animal that lives on top of a very big other theme music that we're going to have to worry about 93 minutes into this episode. Oh my God, it's Cthulhu music. Mikey, did you make out with your neighbor yet?
Fun fact, I went over there last night. We snuggled a little bit.
Oh, Mikey got some snuggles. Did you get some COVID-19 in comfort?
Things are all flip-flop because of COVID-19.
Wait, you had sexy time through phone?
Yeah, we had phone sexy time.
Tell me everything.
Edit all of this out. Edit all of this out.
Welcome to the Horror Virgin, everyone. I'm Jen.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd, which means I don't like scary movies and you guys make me watch them. And this week, you guys made me watch what I have to assume is a combination of The Abyss and Alien, but directed at Twilight fans, and that is Underworld.
Nope. Underwater.
Shit, sorry. Yeah,
Which,
Underwater.
Side note, Underworld is good. I like that.
Okay.
Anyways, yeah, we watched Underworld this. Fuck.
No.
Fuck, I was drinking when you said that. Oh my God, I almost had water come out my nose.
Speaking of water, the movie we actually watched was
It's Underwater. Yeah. Holy shit. I'm leaving all of that in because it's fucking hilarious.
It's the curse.
All right,
guys.
we got to talk about this fucking movie. Okay. This movie came out earlier this year, like 2020.
It's one of the last movies I saw in theaters.
Yeah, it was one of the last movies I think that came out in theaters, from what I understand.
Yeah, it was in January, I think.
We'll cover that when we talk box office, because I have all that information. But Jen,
Okay.
did you see it in theaters? I know you had seen it before.
I didn't. I really wanted to see it in theaters, but
Yeah.
I just didn't get a chance to. But I rented it about 3 weeks ago, and I did a Patreon video about this in the Facebook or in the Patreon.
You asked me
group
for a
too.
bumper for it, so I remember that.
I
Yeah.
did, yeah. I'll probably talk a lot about like some of the stuff I said in that video, but it is there. Too.
Yeah, absolutely. Do
But
it.
yeah, it was one of those days like I was talking in therapy about like I have these self-care days sometimes where I just like lay on the couch with my soft blanket and I watch a horror movie, and it was one of those movies that I watched. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really dug it. I loved it.
Yeah. Mikey, what did you think about it when you saw it in the theaters in what I would assume was early January?
I did it it was like a self-care day for me. And I used to go to the movie theaters a lot. And like I would go in the afternoon when like no one's there. And I really like the movie. First off, The Abyss is one of my favorite films of all time.
Absolutely.
I like underwater stuff, but I really liked this movie. I think it did a lot of stuff that could have been cheesy if not done the right way. And I thought it pulled it off. And I like horror sci-fi, which I feel like this kind of treads that line.
Oh yeah.
I liked the message. I liked Kristen Stewart. I actually liked all the cast. And I'm not a huge TJ Miller fan, but even he was
I think he
decent in this
crushed
one.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll say this,
Yeah.
I don't really love TJ Miller's stand-up. I like him in almost every movie and TV show I see him in, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got some not so fun facts about him that we can talk about later.
Ah, shit.
Have you not heard about this, Todd?
No, I don't know anything about it.
yeah.
Oh, he got thrown off of Silicon Valley and everything.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll get there.
All right.
Most characters had like a really cool arc, or like you learn their backstory. I like that.
Yeah, I have 3 issues with this movie that we'll get to, but overall, I thought it was great. I really liked it.
I like that we've gone through JGJ's like whole filmography already.
Dude, JGJ
I
is
know.
amazing, and he's great in this. I think Kristen
He
Stewart's
is.
a great actress. I just wish that she could get roles that didn't sound like she was in Twilight still, because I think she is so good and could really do some acting with better dialogue. In this movie, I think we compared it to Alien and The Abyss, and I loved both of those movies. I thought they were great, rad movies. Alien was a lot scarier than The Abyss was, but I think this movie was fun. The dialogue was trash, but other than that, it was interesting.
I don't think it was all trash.
I didn't think it was terrible until you have the main character talking to the girlfriend of JGJ while they're dragging him across the seabed floor. And then K-Stu goes, "You really love him, don't you?" And she goes, "Yeah." And then K-Stu answers with, "That's really cool."
Yeah,
That's how people talk.
in Twilight.
She's trying to make small talk to keep her calm. I don't know. There's not that much you can say after someone says they love somebody. You say good for you or that's cool. I mean, like, that's what I've said anytime somebody says I'm in love with someone. I'm like, that's really great.
What are you, in Twilight, Mikey?
Is that what you say when people say they're in love with you?
I don't say anything
That's
because I'm
cool.
like, peace.
Yeah.
That's when you see Mikey just disapparate.
There's not enough escape pods.
My only complaints were about the writing of this movie, which I do think that's really important. You got to have really good writing. And that's why I think it didn't live up to like a Alien or Abyss. It just was not as good as that because the writing was not good. Everything else I thought was great and rad. And the overall story I liked. It's just the writing was pretty trash.
I agree and disagree because there are problems I have with the overall story, and then there are parts of the script that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
You know, so I kind of am uneven with it, but yeah.
I think the dialogue is serviceable. I mean, I don't think it's like super memorable, but I mean,
It's
like,
not.
I don't hate it, and like I feel that the movie makes up for it. I mean, like, it's a suspense film, and
Yeah.
there's not a lot of downtime to talk anyway.
Well, that's true. I mean, once it goes, which we're about to get into, but like it takes off.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Honestly, and I think that's why Aliens is a little better because it starts at such a lull and you see their interactions and like characters are established before Crisis.
You're able to care about the characters a lot more than you are in this movie. Yeah. I think one of my biggest problems is I didn't care about them in this movie as much as I did in Aliens.
This film kind of reverses it where like you don't learn a lot about character motivations until the very end.
I think this movie is in so many ways an inverse of Alien. Like, I think intentionally in ways, and I think sometimes like just in the way the story plays out, it almost like does the opposite of what Alien does, which I really dig a lot of the times in this movie. You know,
it's definitely not stereotypical for like science fiction horror kind of thing.
I also feel like the main character of this did not have a story arc really at all. She was badass the whole time, and that's cool. It makes for a decent action movie.
I don't think she had a story arc.
Yeah.
You just learn her motivations of like why she's that way as the film goes on. So it's not like she has a big like turn or change.
Yeah.
Because she's like not happy with life. She kind of went down there to escape the tragedy that happened to her.
Yeah. Well, and so did the captain.
And yeah, exactly.
My biggest problem with it is just, and there are a lot of things I love about Kristen Stewart, but I do not like how she delivers lines or dialogue because like her style of being upset acting is like struggling to get through the words.
Yeah.
So like when she and Emily were dragging them through, the first time I understood what she said, and the second time I couldn't fucking understand half the words she was saying because she was saying, yeah, he was, and they went to the, and she just like rushes through her words.
Yeah.
And that's like her way of expressing how upset she is, which is fine if you're a regular person and you're talking to someone one-on-one. But like, I get so frustrated with her sometimes because I'm like, I can't understand what you're saying.
That's the director's fault. If you're not getting what you want out of your actor or actress, and Kristen Stewart is capable of doing other things. So if that's the performance they wanted, that's.
And I don't think she did right. I just think their view of the character was very muted and very like, okay, she has all this trauma, but she's like pushed it down and she doesn't want to talk about it. She wanted to save the captain because he has a kid. She wanted to save them because they have a love, where she's accepted like, okay, this terrible thing happened to me. I don't have a lot worth living for in general. That's why I came down here to make money because I don't really have a purpose.
Yeah.
All that stuff's very muted.
I think the more interesting character arc is Emily because she starts off really, really scared and she actually is the hero of the film. But I think we should just get into the fucking movie because like we're going to talk about all this when we get into it. Yeah.
All right. So we start with opening credits, which is an underwater map.
Long. It is so long. The credits are like 4 minutes. Why? Why would you
so
do
many
that to
ocean
me?
facts?
I like the credits on this one.
I did too.
Gibbets, you're on my side with the credits, Mikey.
No, I think Todd just has a vendetta against credits.
I like credits where you have to read the headlines to find out some context of the movie.
It's like microfiche credits. And I'm down for it. We learned that they are in an underwater station.
7 miles underwater. Yeah.
Yes. And I've got fun facts about the like real place that they are.
Oh, wait. It's based on a real thing?
No, you can't go down that far.
Well, no, you can't.
You mean like where they are?
Yeah.
Yes, where they are. They're on the Mariana Trench.
Mariana's Trench, yeah. Yeah, that is a real place. But we've not gone all the way down there yet, which is
We
why
have
we
not.
haven't run into the real life Cthulhu. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah,
Right.
that's the one thing that's saving us. Although
Yeah.
I hear Elon Musk is on it. So
Well, right. Well, he is a modern day H.P. Lovecraft.
I mean, yeah. Did you see what he named his kid?
He is straight up a Roger Moore Bond villain.
Yeah, when you enter life and your parents own a rare gemstone mine and you literally grow up with your brother having fights where you're throwing diamonds at each other, you're not going to have a regular life. He's never going to be normal and he's never going to be good.
Exactly. Yeah, he's not on our side, guys.
I mean, listen, I want a Tesla. If I had money, I'd buy a Tesla, but I still don't think Elon Musk is a good dude.
Well, so we're starting to see that we're in this underwater mining station called the Kepler Station.
Which is a ripoff of, well, okay, so I've slowly realized that they're just using as many space references in their names as possible because Kepler is Johannes Kepler and he was an astrologer like 400 years ago or whatever. And then the whole time they're trying to get to the Roebuck, which is from Battlestar Galactica. Like they're just hammering in every space reference they can find because they really want you to know this is like space, but underwater.
Yeah. And I actually really like how they treat underwater like space. I think it's really cool.
On some level, it is very similar because they have to wear like space type suits when they're down that low.
The first draft was actually called just outer space.
Oh, was it?
And it was just in space.
And that's one of the things I do like, because I feel like there is a lot of, like, when I first heard about this movie, I heard it was just an Alien ripoff, and I don't think it is at all. I think there's a lot of parallels to Alien, but I think they intentionally, like, it's a different story, you know, and I think the motivations are different too. But anyway, so we start to see that there are some unexplained anomalies down here, and we don't know very much about that yet, although we will find out.
Is this when she's in the bathroom, like brushing her teeth or whatever?
Kind of. So we've like panned down, and it's like a really long, thin space station, although it's underwater, and it's really cool. But it's so cool. Like, I was watching it pan down, and I was like, oh, it just keeps going and going and going and going and going, you know? But yeah, they're at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. And so Kristen Stewart is now in a locker room brushing her teeth. And I just have to say, like, she is so hot in this movie. I love how she looks. Like, this is the movie that makes me want to shave my head, you know? I'm like,
oh, yeah?
And just wear like sports bras around. Like, her aesthetic, like what she's wearing in this movie, I'm like, yeah, I'd wear that. That's my look. Like, if I had an ideal look, it would be this movie. I love it.
I thought she was very attractive in this film.
And she's also got this necklace that keeps going down in her cleavage that she is like a sentimental thing. Okay, and here, I guess we'll just go ahead and talk about it. Here's the bone that I have to pick with this, is they could so easily have made her fiance a girl or a woman, and it bugs me that they didn't. I don't have a huge problem with it, but I'm just like, she's already, like, she is one, like, a queer actress. And there's no reason for it to be a heterosexual relationship. So I wish they had just made it a woman. You know, we don't ever even see the person, you know.
But she wasn't out at the time they filmed this movie.
Was she not?
No.
Yeah, and I've got fun facts about when this was filmed, too. It's one of those things where it's like, I almost felt like that love interest thing. It's part of what we were saying about her arc, is that it was almost just thrown in at the last minute to make her more, like, feminized, you know. Oh, she's doing it for love, you know, because it doesn't really have much to do with what her character does in the rest of the movie, you know. This is a choice they could have made that they didn't. What I'm saying is this was an opportunity for them to show a same-sex couple, and they didn't. And it bugs me. So that's bone number one. We'll get to the other two.
To refocus us back on track, I don't like voiceover in movies, especially when it's for no reason. And this is why I felt it was a little Twilighty. The film is bookended by voiceover that I feel like is sort of not needed.
If it's Morgan Freeman, I'll allow it.
Yeah, but that's a very different style of voiceover. This is just like an angsty girl talking about angsty things, and it's not needed at all.
I don't think so. You can't establish her character without the voiceover, which is the director's fault. She basically has to state, this is who I am at the beginning, something bad happened, and at the end she's like, come to terms with it or whatever. But what I like about this scene is that the spider crawls out of the sink, and it's like, that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah, how did the spider get there?
Exactly. And it's just like a spider shadowing.
No.
Yes, it is. Because guess what else crawls out of a drain that's not supposed to be there?
The Balrog of the movie. Yeah, they dug too deep.
I kind of agree. I don't love the voiceover, although it didn't really bother me because I like what she's saying, and she's just talking about how you lose sense of time, you know?
Y'all are like tearing into this movie. It's just an action movie. I was just happy that characters were in it that were like decent.
Well, we've talked about 5 minutes of it. There are a lot of things that I do really love about the movie.
So I do like that we don't get anything else before shit starts to happen. All we do is see the 2 minutes of her brushing her teeth and talking to a daddy long leg spider, and then boom, shit starts happening like a minute and a half into this film.
So water is dripping from the thing, which, like the spider, is not supposed to be there.
No.
Even though they're underwater. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Because they're 7 miles under the surface. So, like, there's a lot of water pressure. It's real hard, guys. But so she's like, what the fuck? And then all of a sudden, the whole thing just explodes. And, like, water is pouring in, and it's, like, rocking, and it's being really awesome and cool, and she's running down hallways and trying to wake people up.
I do like these cool slow motion explosion shots that are throughout the film.
I do too. I think the effects in this are amazing.
Yeah, I think the effects were really well done. Yeah, that's one of the things I really liked about it. But she gets to a place where she sees like this terminal, and she's trying to close like a bulkhead of some sort. And she meets another character whose name I can't remember because
Rodrigo. And I had to look it up.
Rodrigo, yeah. There are a lot of characters in this, but I had trouble learning what people's names were.
Yeah, I don't know anybody's names.
Yeah, so Rodrigo is there too, and she's like trying to figure out what's going on, and she's like looking at TVs or whatever, and then he's asking about it. Was it earthquakes or whatever? She's like, I don't know. And he asks, you're an engineer? And she said, yeah. And he goes, are you computer? Are you mechanical? And she's like, I'm a mechanical engineer.
Yeah, she's trying to like hack in to close the door. But as that's happening, like the water is like gushing in like Deep Blue Sea style. And they see two people running down the hallway. And they're like, come on, come on, come on. Like we tried to save the theme music earlier in this episode.
Right.
And I kind of like this, that they like because in other movies, I feel like they would have just gotten in. It's like a very Train to Busan kind of moment, but she was like, no, it's going to take the entire thing down if we don't close this door right now. So
and also those guys, and I think they were guys, they were really far away, but they weren't even close.
No,
like
they weren't
she
close.
definitely made the right call. There was no way they were going to make it, and then everyone would have died.
I
so,
like
yeah.
that they weren't close because both of them,
Me too.
Rodriguez and Kristen Stewart, were like, let's just close the door.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think when I look at Kristen Stewart's arc in this movie, I think it's like a sacrifice arc, where she's sacrificing herself or doing things so that other people survive. And I think this is part of it now that I think about it.
They weren't even close. They were probably 10 feet away by the time they were overtaken by the water. Like there was no way they were going to make it.
But they do close the door, and then there's another like big explosion. Anyway, she wakes up in some water, and they're both okay. So we've got Rodrigo and Kristen Stewart at this
Whose
point.
name is Nora. Yeah, Kay Stu's name is Nora in the movie. I did learn that one because everyone says her name. But yeah, they start sort of trying to get to the escape pods. But like everything's fucked up. Things are collapsed, and they're just trying to get to where they are, right?
Yeah, they're trying to get to the pod base where they can get to like escape pods. But they're hearing like monster noises outside, which I always think of as like Jurassic Park noises underwater,
Yeah, like guttural moans and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. It's unclear whether it's like explosion noises or if it's like sinister, there's a monster noise, which I think is cool.
It's definitely sinister monsters, but we'll get there. Yeah.
But they don't know that. At this point, they're like, what the fuck is going on?
I honestly thought for 1 second when they got to the pod bay, we were going to see just the captain recording a podcast.
I mean, he did have that hunched over look to him.
Right.
Yeah, he did.
They find out that the whole rig is pretty much fucked and that they're going to have to get out of there.
Yeah.
And that there are evacuation pods in Sector 7. So now that's what they're doing. So they're walking through some tunnels full of rubble, and they find TJ Miller there.
Yeah, well, TJ Miller, who is buried in rubble.
Yes, he is buried. Mm-hmm.
They lift rocks to get him out, and he has a little stuffed animal rabbit.
Yeah, that brings me to my second problem with this movie, and this one is not the movie's fault, because I do think TJ Miller is good in this movie and I like him. Unfortunately, he has allegedly done some things that I don't like. So that's a problem. And it's not the movie's fault.
That's a huge bummer.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that it's hard for me to overlook,
All that controversy I don't think happened until after this movie was done.
Yeah, this movie was filmed in like 2015. Right. So yeah.
Agreed. And that's why it's one of those things. It's like, I love House of Cards. And again, I want to say, I'm not blaming the movie for that. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
Because I do really like his character, and his dialogue is some of the stuff that I really like because I think his character is funny.
I really wish that they had used his character to foreshadow what was going to happen at the end and not make him inexplicably obsessed with Alice in Wonderland, because that never pays off in any way at all. This is another reason why it's bad writing to me. They could have easily have made him obsessed with like sea monsters.
Yeah, or like Lovecraft.
With Lovecraft, or with like just general like old stories about monsters in the sea from like pirate era, right? And then Lovecraftian monsters would have been a part of that, and he could have like foreshadowed it some. But instead, they just make him obsessed with Alice in Wonderland, and then that never pays off.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like when I was doing research for that, I didn't notice that the first time I was watching it. I was like, what?
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I noticed the rabbit, but it's like I just didn't pick up the Lewis Carroll references. Yeah, it's one of those things. It's like I wonder if they cut out the part of that made that make sense, or if it was just something they threw in. Yeah.
Like a character quirk or whatever.
Right.
I mean, you find out at the end that he was like her fiance's best friend, right?
No, that's Jonathan Gallagher Jr.
Are we sure?
I think it was the captain.
So I guess no, we're not sure is the answer to that.
There's some debate about that, Mikey.
I'm pretty sure it was TJ Miller.
Yeah, I thought it was the captain, but in truth, I don't really remember. And that's what I mean about the writing not being great. Like, I feel like they don't establish people's names very well. And then when they reference people's names, you just don't know who they are.
Yeah. And one of the things I like about it is it's just like action nonstop. I really like that part, but I think you sacrifice story with that. And
I don't feel like you have to. I feel like this movie does, though.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. If you like, there are ways to weave that in that it makes more sense. Even
Agreed.
just like one or two lines of dialogue, you know?
Yeah.
But I also like it's a fun movie to just go along with for the ride, so I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that's fun to watch, but is instantly forgettable because of it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where it's just kind of frustrating because the seeds are there and they could have, but they didn't.
Exactly.
You know? Okay, so they find TJ Miller.
Yeah, and they literally unbury him. Yeah.
So now they're going through another scary hallway. But so as they're going through this, there's a jump scare. And I was wondering, because I watched this after you had posted that it scared the shit out of you. So I was trying to figure out which ones it was. Yeah, I watched it pretty late last night.
This is not the jump scare I tweeted about, but this did scare me. In fact, in my notes, I literally wrote dead body jump scare, fuck you movie. But they're like crawling through this like tight space that has been compacted because of the attack, right? And they come upon a dead woman, right?
Yes,
and
somebody who's gotten crushed.
Yeah, and that just scared the shit out of me. And Kristen Stewart has to move her hand out of the way, which is a little heartbreaking. And then she like scoots past, and Rodrigo scoots past, and TJ Miller scoots past too. And they get past it, but it scared me.
I think it's an effective jump scare, and I like how that adds to the movie because it reminds them like there were other people on the ship that died, and it's
there was like 300 or something, but they said that 30 pods went off before, I think.
Yeah, so some people escaped.
Yeah.
Sorry, you say some people escaped, but in the end credits, the only people that got out of the last two people who left, and we'll get there, but yeah.
Well, because they got by the kids.
Apparently.
Oh, is that what happened?
I just don't think this movie's writing is very good because they don't account for that, and then they pretend like the last two people who make it out actually made it out, and no one else did.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense if the creatures did kill the pods as they went.
No joke, Mikey. They must have done that.
Well, yeah, because they investigated a pod that was attacked by a creature later on. So that makes sense.
All right, so they get to this pod bay, and Vincent Cassell is there, and he's the captain, Lucian. I'll probably call him Vincent because
he's great.
I love him.
Yeah.
He is.
He's been in a bunch of stuff. He's mainly a French actor, but he's great.
He's also super hot. So there are quite a few people that I have a crush on in this movie, and he's one of them. And I like him not playing an asshole, too.
Yeah, you know? he's a very sweet, sort of sad character.
Yeah, but I feel like he plays asshole so well that that's what I have usually seen him play, you know?
Yeah, and he's actually in the escape pod room, and they're trying to get into the escape pod room, but the door is jammed. But because she's a mechanical engineer, she figures out how to get it open. So she opens
in like
it
10 seconds.
Yeah, it's like nothing for her. But I mean, I sort of get that. She's a mechanical engineer. That's like her job.
Exactly.
And she's just good at her job. Like, that didn't bother me at all. But she does get into the room and then talks to the captain. Yeah, of course she did.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the captain, like, he can't be expected to know every single detail of everything on this entire thing. Like, his job is to manage the people that do know that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I did think that was a nice little moment. But he's asking, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how fucked up is everything? And she's like, oh, it's a 10. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, we're fucked. And then the captain says something that ensures he's going to die later and says, we're all going to get out of here alive.
Uh-huh.
I was like, oh, you're dead. You're never making it out.
You have to say that if you're the leader. You have to say it.
Yeah, and then you're going to die. Yeah.
I say that all the time at work.
You're going to die, Mikey.
But I mean, and I do think he's a good captain because he could have gone with the escape pods, but he didn't. He chose to stay behind, you know,
yeah,
which
absolutely.
I think maybe there's a little bit of a depression angle there because we also find out he has a kid, or does he?
He has a kid. His kid's just no longer alive. There's a difference there. Yeah.
Right. But they're talking about how there could be more people up there because he's like, okay, they're comparing their knowledge. Like, what do we know? What's going on?
Right. And there are multiple levels to this thing, and it is exploding sort of top down, or they suppose it is. So there are people on the other levels, or
yes,
you have to assume there are.
Well, and we're going to find out that there are because that's when we go to the control room and we find Emily and Smith, Smith is John Gallagher Jr.
JGJ, baby.
We love. And he's great in this movie. And I although he doesn't have a lot to do in this movie, but I love that he doesn't have a lot to do.
It's a stereotypical JGJ movie where he is a side character who does something really nice for a female character and then is taken out for the rest of the film.
Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, honestly, he is probably the best actor in this movie.
I mean, I don't look at it as that much as he's rescued by someone.
He is rescued by somebody.
Right, yeah.
I just mean he sacrifices his well-being for his love interest, or a person, because he's a good guy. He always plays a good guy.
Emily, his girlfriend, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then she saves him.
Yeah, he didn't die in acid this time, thank God. But I mean, you know, he's pretty much taken out the whole film.
I mean, that's why I think that Emily's character is like the more compelling story that we should have been watching, because she actually has like a crazy fucking arc that we sort of miss out the most on.
I think it would have been really neat to see her perspective of like being weak and scared and like frightened and then like leaning on Kristen Stewart and then she getting taken out like halfway through the film.
Kristen Stewart?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we see enough of, like, I'm happy with the way they presented her art.
That would have been fucking awesome, Mikey, because then you're like, oh shit, this movie's about Emily?
Yeah.
And then she sort of takes the reins and becomes this badass, which she does. We just don't get to see it because we're following.
I like this movie. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's an interesting arc. It's an interesting character arc.
Okay, so we've got Emily and Smith.
They're on like the bridge or whatever.
They are, yeah. So now we've got everybody in our Scooby Gang is together.
Our quote unquote survivors. Yeah.
Yes, this is one of the ways that it's an inverse of Alien. Is in Alien, the crew, we start to see the crew fracture, and kind of turn on each other and not listen to each other. We don't see that here. And that's one of the things I really like about this movie is everybody is supporting each other. They're working together really well. Like they don't make it, but it's never because somebody was selfish or somebody like didn't take advice.
Right.
They never turn on each other, which I love.
I do like that. They're a well-oiled crew and everyone listens to the captain. I mean, it's nice.
Yeah.
The captain is like, okay, well, this is what we can do. We can get to the seafloor and we can abyss across the seafloor and then get to the Roebuck, which is like another drill, I think, and then use the Roebuck's escape pods. I assume that was the plan, right?
Right.
And I do like this conversation because they're like, well, that's going to kill us, or like, that'll kill us.
Right. Can you just admit that we might die? I loved that.
And then his thing was, can you just admit that we might live? Because if we stay here, we're definitely going to die. And
exactly.
I feel like that does a really good job of setting up the stakes in an interesting way because you might very well die if you do this, but if we stay here, we're definitely going to die.
Definitely.
So you always got to choose the path that possible life exists on,
And this is one of the moments that I do really like Kristen Stewart's acting. I feel like this type of conversation works well with her style. We also find out that there's a shepherd station, which is just kind of another element that we're going to
I kind of forget why they chose not to go there. They bring it up in this conversation. That's when we first learned about Shepherd Station. But then the captain says something about it being decommissioned or it's like it's not operable or whatever. I'm not quite sure exactly why they chose not to go there.
I think it was like he didn't 100% know if they had escape pods still there.
I don't think they do because Kristen Stewart does not get in the escape pod there. She just changes out her suit or what. We'll talk about them when we get there. But like,
we will.
The conversation is quick and it's very logic oriented. It's a very realistic depiction of like decision making.
Which is one of the reasons I like the captain and one of the reasons I like this scene. Yeah.
Me too. And the movie in general, like we're talking about them sacrificing a lot of the story, but I mean, they give us enough to keep the action moving, which I really like.
Right. But they decide to do what the captain wants to do, which is to get on the suits and then go to the seafloor.
Exactly. Because what else are they going to do?
Yeah.
They literally have no other options.
Yeah, exactly. It's the only possible life situation. Let's go towards that.
Yeah, and these fucking dive suits are super sweet.
I called them space wetsuits because they look like space suits, but they're for underwater.
They're so cool.
Right. But before they get these suits on, JGJ comes over and says, hey, I heard this big monster noise. Yeah. Yeah, like, help me. Oh my God, it's a monster. Oh, have you read Lovecraft? Oh, it reminds me of that.
So, guys, if you didn't realize what we just did, I literally just dropped in the actual audio of the transmission. So
yeah, we tried to clean it up a little bit.
That is literally what you heard if you watched the movie.
Shit.
Was that. So I'm actually a little surprised at this point they didn't realize what was going on outside yet.
I know.
Because the transmission really gives it away. Even gives away the source material. Like, it's insane they didn't understand it.
I can't do this. I cannot do this.
But the transmission really is just things exploding or what you recognize as exploding sounds and then other sounds that are not exploding sounds that cannot be accounted for.
This is how I know I would die in a monster movie like this, because if somebody was like, it seems like there's a creature on this transmission, I was like, shut the fuck up. The station's exploding and now you're talking about monsters. Let's just get out of here. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and then you get eaten by a monster. You're going to get Deep Blue Sea.
I'm very logical, and I'm like, come on, guys.
But so TJ does put some music on at this point.
That's when they get to where they're putting on the suits, right?
Yeah, it's a suit up montage.
And so as they're doing this, Emily sees this mural that's real faded of a sea monster that could have been the thing TJ Miller was obsessed with, but wasn't.
I wish the guy who had painted that wall art didn't die in the initial explosions and TJ Miller's character had died in the initial explosion, so we could have gotten those stories and the foreshadowing of what the fuck actually happens at the end of this movie.
Right. So they're all starting to get into their wetsuits, and we're seeing these gigantic, because they are like what you're saying, they're like space
wetsuits. Yeah, they're space suits for heavy pressure,
because they are 7 miles underneath, and we're going to see why we need them in just a minute.
But what I do like is like the magical oxygen scrubber cores that come out of the back of the suits. It looks super cool.
It is super cool. Yeah, I love the suits. I thought they were fucking dope. Yeah.
I like the science fiction. Cool. I like the science fiction elements of the film.
I think it's really cool, and I love, like I said earlier, I love how they treat this like outer space, even though it's underwater, because because I have a fear of open water. So like anytime they were outside, it's terrifying.
Yeah, I fucking hated those scenes. But in the scene where they're putting on the space wetsuits, that's when we see TJ Miller's crazy like Russian chest tattoo or whatever it was.
Emily is really scared. And this is when she's asking, like, has anyone ever done this? And we find out no. Like, occasionally somebody will have to go fix a pipe, but no, people don't like just walk across the bottom of the ocean. You know?
But why would you? Like, you wouldn't go out for a pleasure walk across the sea floor, right? You would only go out there if you had to for your job. So, like, I feel like they explained that away fine.
You know, there's some person on there that's like, ooh, that'd be cool.
The astronauts go on spacewalks, and they're all excited about it. I'm sure anybody
But they don't do it
would
for fun. Even in space, they're going out there to, like, solder something that's been fucked up by space debris or whatever.
But I mean, like, they're stoked about it.
Because it's life or death, you know? And, but I mean, it is a cool thing to be able to say you've done, but yeah. But basically, she's saying, like, the stakes of this are really high. There's not, like, old Jim who's made 50 ocean walks, you know?
And I don't think any of them have done it. Maybe the captain, but no one else has really ever been outside the ship. Or, sorry, drill.
But they all get in their suits, and so they're going into...
Oh, can I say this at first? Did you guys see when Rodrigo was handing the helmet to Keistu? He was looking at them like, which one should I give her?
Really?
Yeah, because what happens to him, his is already cracked. And I think he saw that, and he handed her the one that was not structurally compromised.
Oh, I did not catch that.
Did you guys not see that?
What a good dude, yeah.
I know, right? Because he was like, it might be okay, but I might get fucked. And he, you know, sort of like sacrificed himself, or at least took on the risk that did not pay out in his favor. Yeah.
Yeah. Because the next thing that's happening is they're going into the depressurized area and they're starting to open, because I got a little confused about where they were walking, but they're about to allow the pressure of the ocean in and do some kind of walk. And we start to see that crack. And this part terrified me.
It was
why I don't want to swim in the ocean. Because it's starting to crack. And then it's cracking a little more, and he's like, oh, shit, what the fuck? And they're trying to close the door, but it's too late. And so, man, he implodes, but it's like, it's terrifying how it happens. It's like all of a sudden he's just not there anymore.
Yeah.
It looks like like an underwater mine went off. It's an explosion.
It is.
Yeah.
It's just the pressure getting into his suit literally crushes him, which is what would happen.
Right.
Yeah.
Which leads me to my third bone to pick with this movie, and this is my last one, but way to play into the killing the black character first stereotype.
Yeah.
Movie.
I didn't like that one.
Yeah, like we didn't even learn his name. He says it, but like none of us knew anything about it. It just really bugged me.
I thought for sure TJ Miller was going to be the first one to die.
Me too.
Yeah. And he easily could have been, you know?
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where I don't think the movie was intentionally making any kind of statement or doing anything, but it's just like now, like this was 2017. We're now in 2020. Like, you have to be aware of the optics of those kinds of things. You need to think about it, you know?
And, like, it's been an open joke about horror movies for, like, 30 years.
Yeah, it's been forever. I think, doesn't Scream talk about it? Like,
yeah. Like that.
And that was the 90s.
Deep Blue Sea does. Yeah, it's just one of those things. And it's kind of going back to where I was, like, talking about Kristen Stewart and her love interest. Like, when you have an opportunity to make a more progressive choice, filmmakers take it. You know, because it really matters. You know, it sounds like small things, and like to this one particular movie, it doesn't matter, but it matters in the bigger sense. You know, because the next movie will do it. You know,
and take the social stuff out of it, but that's super important. It makes your movie predictable and boring. Like, okay, black guy dies first. I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. And not only is that degrading to like a whole people, it's degrading to your audience, it's degrading to everybody.
It just surprises me that nobody noticed that or nobody saw it.
You mean who was actually working on the...
Who was making the movie, that nobody caught it before it came out, you know? I'm like, well, who... So that leads me, like, who do you have working on this movie? You know, who's making this movie?
I was really hoping the bone you had to pick was with the line of dialogue that said, what's the scariest part of the roller coaster? The line.
Oh.
It's like, it's
not
fucking
true.
not. The scariest part of the roller coaster is the roller coaster, you idiot.
No, the scariest part is the clicking of the chain, which still would have worked in the metaphor.
You mean like the incline?
Yeah.
Before it starts? I mean, I'm still going to respectfully disagree with you. The scariest part of the roller coaster is when you're going on one and then it stops before you hit the terminal and your friend turns to you and says, now we're going to do the whole thing backwards. That's the scariest part of the fucking roller coaster.
I mean, I get his metaphor was like the anticipation is scarier than the act.
Right.
But like the clinking of the chain going up the hill is a lot more better of a metaphor than, the line out front.
So what you're saying, Mikey, is the dialogue in this movie isn't great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go ahead. I've come around, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, yeah, it's not that
I
great.
think this movie's a great action movie. I just don't think it's well written. Yeah,
I didn't realize how much of it was my mind plugging the holes of the dialogue to make the movie great. I like how I just did it. Like, I watched the movie and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what happened. And I explained it to y'all. And you're like, what? And I'm like, okay, nope. I just made up my own movie in my mind. But it was great. It was a great movie.
The Mikey cut.
Yeah, the Mikey cut of this movie is fucking fantastic.
Okay, this is when I get a little lost when they're out in the ocean, which I kind of like because I feel like they are lost too, you know? It's like they're jumping down onto something. I think they're just going down to the bottom.
Yeah, let me just say this. When you're jumping down onto something in the ocean, you're really just sinking. You're not jumping anywhere. They kept saying, jump down to me.
It's a throwaway line, but they're like, we're going to leave here and then we're going to go to this elevator.
Yes.
And then take the elevator the rest of the way down. Yeah.
Well, and so because at the beginning we saw how long this ocean ship is. And so I think they just are like systematically working their way down.
They are. You're right.
In the ocean, Jen, they just call them ships.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Yeah. Or sometimes, but all that to say, like, they are not supposed to really know what the fuck's going on. So I kind of like how disoriented you are when they get out of a ship, you know?
Yeah. Anytime they were out and on the floor of the ocean or just like walking around, I was fucking terrified because it looks like helmet cam found footage, and it was terrifying. I hated that so much.
And even if there's not a monster, there are sharks. Like, I've seen that episode of Planet Earth with the crazy fish that are down there. Like, you don't know what's going to get you.
Yeah.
You know?
You don't know what lives 7 miles underwater.
All right. So they get back inside. And so now she's feeling really guilty about Rodrigo, which, I mean, if Mikey, what you were saying is right, like, he did sacrifice himself for her, although I don't know how intentional that was. But
I realize we look a lot alike, but that was me that said that.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I'm going to take credit.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Todd.
Thank you, Jen. I was not going to correct you.
Sorry, Todd. So Todd, what you were saying earlier about whether he's like examining these helmets, like he did, I don't know how intentional it was, but he does sacrifice his life for her because she does know he knew it was cracking. Like, it's not like this came out of the blue and he had this horrible death. So.
Right.
Well, and the captain says at this point, I know you feel upset, take that feeling and use it, which, I mean, could be maybe what motivates her arc later. Is like,
you think he gaslit her into killing herself?
No.
Wow.
No, it's not gas when it's underwater. It's bubble.
Oh, yeah.
Bubble lit.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think maybe that's kind of like somebody was willing to sacrifice for her so she can be willing to sacrifice for somebody else, you know? But they're now it's like a water elevator, a water vader, if you will.
Yeah. They're in there down. And they're going down as fast as they can, you know, and they, at this point, they get like a distress call from another elevator that they're not quite down to yet.
It's a pod.
Oh shit. Yeah. Sorry. It is a pod, but it's sort of on their descent angle, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to pass really close to it. So they're like, well, we're going to stop. Yeah.
The captain says the word survivor like 90 times and then they finally stop.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
And then they are trying to decide who's going to go out to like check on this pod. And then he like volunteers Emily to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty funny.
I thought so too. Yeah. And that's the thing. One of the things I was talking about that bugs me is like, that's the kind of shit I would be saying. You know, I would be making those dumb jokes.
Right.
Because in a minute, like, he gives her this stuffed bunny and he's like, if it doesn't make it, I'm going to haunt you.
Yeah.
You know, that, like, I have probably said that to you guys at some point. And those are the parts of the script that I do really
this is
like,
the dialogue that works for me too.
But isn't this also where we find out that the captain has a 14-year-old daughter, or does he? And when K-Stu sort of corrects her, he's like, she'd be around my age now, wouldn't she?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, well, it's after. So TJ Miller and John Gallagher Jr. are suiting up to go find out if there's anybody still alive in the pod. And while they're gone, they're just kind of shooting the shit. Or like what Mikey was saying earlier, or was it Todd that was saying this? Like the small talk, just to kind of like, what else are you going to say? You know? And I do like Emily's character a lot. And I think, you know, she's, I think, the most developed.
Which one's Emily?
JGJ fiance.
Oh, okay, yeah. I like her character, yeah. I don't know any of their names. I'm sorry.
But we see Kristen Stewart looking at a picture of her and her guy, who we're going to find out more about later. And I didn't catch that the first time I watched the movie, but I did this time.
And to your point, Jen, that's really the only thing you'd have to change is what picture she's looking at.
I know.
It's such an easy lift. I know. Like,
it really is. Yeah.
And maybe
change.
I think she does mention her fiance by name later. So you change one bit of dialogue and the photo that's in that thing she's looking at, and that's it.
I know. So let's see. And Emily's talking about her corgi and like she's just trying to distract her mind from being so scared. But so back to TJ Miller and JGJ.
Yeah, TJ and JGJ, as they're outside of the like pod elevator going to the escape pod to see what's going on.
Team Alphabet.
But they hear what sounds like birds chirping and they're asking like what's going on.
Yeah,
and
what the fuck was that? They never address the birds chirping. And that's one of the things I think is bad writing is they set these things up that never pay off. Like nothing under there makes bird sounds.
I just thought it was the creatures.
Oh, well, we never hear that sound again, and we never see them making that sound. So that never pays off in any way.
Maybe it was the baby they kill.
Wait, what? They kill a baby?
The alien baby.
Oh,
right.
The alien baby. Okay. Sorry.
Well, because that's the next thing. They find this crashed pod and they see it's covered with some kind of algae or algae.
Algae? What word are you trying to say?
Emily says algae. And
wait,
they
really?
say algae.
I missed that. I'm so sorry, Jen. I must have missed that.
No,
oh my
that's
God.
in the movie. And then everybody just
It is, yeah.
It's so funny.
Hey, but she's the research assistant, so if anybody's gonna know how to pronounce it,
It's like vitamins instead of vitamins.
Oh yeah, or aluminium.
Aluminium, yeah, I was gonna say that. Cheerio. But anyways, this pod has it, and they find a wallet with a picture. And then a body, and there's something fucked up, and now everybody starts to get scared, and they're like, just come back. And then, Todd, was this the jump scare that got you?
This was the jump scare that literally, and if you saw my tweet last night, I jumped up and I landed when I fell back down. I landed on the remote and the whole TV turned off.
That's funny.
It's like the alien got
So
you.
we had to go back through like, all right, let's go back and get to the movie and then play it again. Yeah. It picked up right where we left off. So we didn't have to like fast forward. But yeah, it was pretty embarrassing. Yeah.
Did they call that the reset of shame? the fast forward of shame?
But it scared the shit out of me. It is so
really
scary. There are so many jump scares in this movie that are fucking horrible.
Yeah, I kind of agree, but I don't feel like they're overplayed. Anyways, so what we find out, it's a tiny little thing, and this is where I could see the connection to Alien because it looks like a dead chest burster. They find it and they shoot it. John Geller Jr. shoots it and pulls it back, and so they're just looking at it.
Oh, yeah, we forgot that they brought nail guns because they're like, oh, that sounds like something's out there. Let's bring nail guns.
Yeah, which is a good
smart.
call.
But so we see this thing, and it's like this shriveled up old pink thing that's dead.
It looks like an old man's penis.
Wow. Okay, Mikey, how many old
I don't
men
know
dicks
what
are
that
you
looks
looking at?
like.
Yeah,
so
I don't. That's
I'm sure I don't know what you mean.
Mikey has a interesting nightlife.
Did you try to poke it with a stick and try to find where its mouth is, Mikey?
I work in the healthcare industry, and I've seen a variety of dong. People always get naked at work, and it's never good nudity. It's
never gonna be.
Do you have to tell your team? Guys, we're all going to make it. We're going to survive.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. This is not going to be usable nudity, but yeah.
So we see this tiny alien body on this table, and Emily's like poking it, and it jerks when she's poking it. And so, like,
yeah, it does.
When and it's gonna like scurry off and start singing "Hello, my baby."
It does look a lot like that guy in Spaceballs.
Spaceballs,
who does that? Yeah, or like an old man's dick, like Mikey was saying.
But she just touched a nerve, and so that made it spasm a little bit,
right?
Like
yes, she did.
But and that's I think an intentional, like, okay, yeah, I think we're gonna go this alien direction, but we're not. Yeah. Because that's the only part that was really like the head-to-head comparison. But we also see that it's got talons, and it might be a new species. But now they've still got to go down, and they keep hearing like banging noises from outside. And then TJ Miller asks, "Is that thing a baby?" Which I think is really ominous. Because then we got a giant jump scare where a big one like jumps on top of space elevator.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, and they're looking up, and I think that's when they see an explosion.
Well, yeah, the Kepler starts to explode. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, I think we should close that door. Which I just like the way this whole thing played out. I think it was very tense, and I appreciated it.
But they do go into that, what is sort of the airlock, but it's like the water lock place, right?
Yeah.
What I really like about the scene is that as it explodes, you just see the shadow of the creature looking into the thing and the explosion outline. It was a cool shot.
Yeah, the effects on this are really, really great. Yeah.
Because as the thing above them has exploded, that's what their elevator was connected to. So now that thing is just sinking, not in free fall, but sinking. Although sometimes you forget that it's in water, which is cool.
Right.
Because it wasn't filmed in water. The water was added later.
So they've got to go into that place. Because they're going to have to run out as soon as it hits the ground to not be crushed, so they have to depressurize themselves.
Yeah, because it's going to fall onto them. The Kepler is, sorry.
Yeah. And this part was so cool because they get down, they all start running out, they kind of just scatter, and then there's just debris raining down everywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really cool. Also, was shocked that nobody died in this.
Well, I thought JGJ did because he gets fucked up in this part because a part does land on his suit. Yeah.
Yeah, he pushes his fiance out of the way and he takes a direct hit to his oxygen scrubber.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Is that the part you're talking about?
Yeah.
Earlier?
That's how his suit gets messed up.
This is like a half criticism for this because I do like it in some ways, but when they were out, I did kind of lose track of who was who.
Me too.
Yeah, which I don't hate because again, like I said, that's how the people would experience it. But it just kind of
it makes it a little bit harder to follow because they're all wearing the exact same suit that make them look the exact same way.
Right. Unless we get a close up, we don't know who it is. Right. They eventually get to the midway station, but they start to see like one of the monsters is just standing there kind of like watching them,
Well, and this is where we start to see monsters like on the periph as they're like looking around. It was fucking terrifying. You see their eyes glowing. That's like the only part of them you can see really. And then you'll see them turn and like illuminate them for a second. And then they go. It was fucking terrifying. I hated it.
Here's my criticism is that those creatures look like just sea people, like mermen.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of, yeah.
Merman.
Except with different mouths. But yeah.
I really like the creature design in this. And we'll see it a little bit later more clearly. But it reminded me of like a jellyfish kind of thing, but like also a skeleton, a skeleton fish.
Yeah.
I guess. And so now they get into the midway station and they all kind of reassess. And that's when they realize Smith inhaled some fumes when his suit got damaged.
That's JGJ. Yeah. And that's because his oxygen scrubber got fucked. Yeah.
But so now they're on a cart going through a long tunnel through the station, They get to a place where it's flooded, so they have to stop. And there's another Alice in Wonderland reference here, which I was like,
yeah, doesn't pay off at all.
I know. I wish it made sense.
Yeah. What would have been cooler is every time he makes an Alice in Wonderland reference, he makes what if it's this sea monster from whatever,
Right.
And just one of them happens to be Cthulhu or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And he was like, oh, I told you. And they think something might be following them because they keep hearing these banging noises that they're starting to suspect are not explosions.
Yes. They're being like hunted.
Right. Yeah. And so now Kristen Stewart gets out and she's going to go through the underwater segment.
They get out and walk in where it's flooded and they walk as far as they can, but then the top is caved in a little bit. So they can't sort of continue walking. They have to put their helmets on and go under it. And I thought this is a little rude of K-Stu to do because there's another woman present, but she goes, I'm the smallest. Right in front of the other girl. And I think that's super rude to do.
I didn't actually notice that. But I also think
JGJ is not a big guy.
No, and listen, I just think it's rude to say, I'm clearly the smallest, Emily.
She was not doing well.
We saw you looking at those moon pie wrappers.
Oh, yeah.
We know.
We know she
Emily.
likes them.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, she could have said, I know Emily is too terrified to do this.
Which is true. Yeah.
Emily's level 10 freaking out this whole time.
She is. Yeah. Although she's starting to kind of
she's about to become a badass though. But yeah.
Because Kristen Stewart goes through and then she goes right behind her. But like every time we've seen something terrible, like she screams and like loses her shit.
Yes.
But this is when I noticed that I love how supportive everybody is, because there's no I kept waiting for TJ Miller, like when he's the last one to like have some nefarious plot or something, and they don't. It's just everybody's trying to do their best,
Yeah.
But so everybody gets through except for TJ Miller, and he does get through, but his arm got caught on something.
I think TJ Miller saw the creature walking down the hallway towards them in the water, but like sort of above the water and in the water, like a crocodile eye thing. And that's why he has that other person go first before him. He sort of sacrifices himself on some level because I think he saw it. And then he goes, because he doesn't want to die. He's going to go immediately when he can.
Well, there is a moment when he goes without waiting. He's like, fuck it, no, I'm just gonna go.
And I think that's why he does that. He's like, okay, the other person's got to be through by now. I'm going to go. So he goes under, and then he sort of gets up enough that they can take his helmet off. Mm-hmm. And then he gets grabbed by whatever. I think it's actually they grabbed
the line.
The line they were using, right?
Yeah.
And he's still attached to it. And they can't,
the tether,
they can't unattach him. So he literally gets ripped until his leg gets pulled out of the suit, and then the pressure of the water crushes him.
Yeah, and it scared me. And the thing that scared me the most is when he's like being dragged under and they put his helmet on really quickly. And I think that he looks so scared in that moment and is like, it's just reminded me of like all of the dangers that are around. Because if they couldn't get that on, like he would have died anyways, because he would have been underwater and wouldn't have been able to breathe.
The only thing I don't like about this part is that water that's in the area that they're on is not pressurized. It would be like It would be like you at your pool. You know, you would feel the weight of it, but he wouldn't implode like Rodrigo did. But that's sort of what looks like there.
JGJ was like, they pulled him out of his suit by his leg socket or whatever.
That is sort of what happened. But you see like the implosion.
You see the blood fill up his where his face was,
which wouldn't happen. But I mean, I still think the effects are fucking dope in this movie, and that's like my only very small complaint with that.
TJ Miller's death was really terrifying.
It was.
And the rest of the group was like, let's get out of the water right now.
I remember thinking when TJ Miller saw like the alien eyes or whatever, or at least we see them, and I got the impression that we were seeing his perspective. Maybe I just read that wrong. I was like, oh, TJ Miller's so fucked. And then he gets to the other side, and I was like, oh, no shit, TJ Miller made it through. And then the second they pull the line, I was like, oh, no, he's fucked. Okay, he is fucked. My bad. Yeah, okay.
I feel like we're talking about this movie, like we're kind of talking about it and picking it apart, and we're saying these things that kind of bug us, but none of this stuff is enough to take you out of the movie, I don't feel like, because it just moves so fast,
From an action movie perspective, you just don't really care that much. But because of the way it's written, I also don't really care that much about the characters, which I think is a detriment overall to the movie, but I still sort of liked it.
Right, exactly. But I don't notice as many of these things as I'm watching the movie. It's more just because we're talking about it,
Sure, yeah.
All right, so now they have their reset moment, and they're talking about how JGJ's suit is super damaged, and he's like, I'm not going to make it. You should go on without me.
Yeah.
He says I can't lose anybody else, which I think is kind of a reference to her fiance or just the other people in the team. I don't know.
Yeah,
right.
It's not really developed.
It's not really clear, yeah.
But so now they are walking on the ocean floor, and they're trying to make it to the Roebuck.
Before they go back out to try and make it towards the Roebuck again, the captain is looking out like the front of the whatever they're in, the midway station, and there's a crack in the glass, and everyone's helmet off, and he pushes the crack until it cracks more. Like, why would you do that, you insane person? It made me so mad.
That glass is like super thick. So, I mean, like, he was just testing it. So once it started cracking, he's like, oh, we got to go now.
Yeah, but wouldn't you be like, hey, guys, I'm going to poke this thing because I'm interested to see how cracked it is. Like, there's no reason to ever do that. And then, but he doesn't warn them that he's going to do that thing that could potentially kill everyone instantly if the water rushes in there and squishes them because they don't have their helmets on.
I don't even think he pushed. I think he just touched it because he was kind of thinking about what they should do next. And it kind of cracked. Yeah, but they're in that station and there's like, well, this station sucks. There's something here that really helps us. So they're like, let's go to the other drill.
Yeah, because the drill that they're in, they're trying to go to the Roebuck, which was their original plan.
Yeah, well, and the Midway station doesn't have escape pods. They just went there because it was on the way. Right. And then they're going to head to the Roebuck, which is further away.
And they can breathe for a minute.
And this is when GJJ is like, what destroyed the drill? And I was like, I don't know, any one of the million reasons that could destroy an underwater station.
Exactly. Yeah, he says how many, it's like 6,000 tons.
Yeah, 6,000 tons was how much it weighed. Yeah.
And this is when Emily says we're not supposed to be down here. And like we've drilled too much and now like the ocean is starting to take it back, which I think is interesting.
She has the Gandalf moment of saying we dug too deep and we discovered something. Yeah, absolutely.
Swim, you fools. Now they're walking to the Roebuck, and they're just going to follow these markers across the plateau.
Yes.
JGJ, like, he knows he's not going to have enough oxygen to make it, so they're like, take shallow breath, and they're starting to carry him.
Right.
So we've introduced a JGJ clock.
A JGJ oxygen clock, Jen.
Yes, if you will. Oxyclock. But as they're walking, like, we see one of the ghosty, like, skeleton jellyfish, like, right behind Kristen Stewart.
Yeah.
And then it grabs JGJ and pulls him into this, like, cave-looking destruction thing.
Yeah.
You know?
It looks like something that was under debris from the exploded Kepler station.
Yeah, but they're able to get him back pretty quickly, so they just pull
the captain just runs in there and sort of dives in there and gets to him, and I thought JGJ was done for.
I did too, and I thought the captain was going to be done for going to get him.
Me too.
Yeah.
And then they pull JGJ out, and then the captain's like, oh, I left my gun, so he goes back for his gun, and that's when I knew the captain was going to get something bad happen to him. But before this, they see all of the squidfish or whatever you call those guys. They see them start like to come around them, and they're like, turn your lights off. And I was like, that's a fucking horrible thing to do because I don't want to watch this movie anymore. I had my hands over my face and was like covering my eyes, but like I had them opened a little bit so I could see like a little bit of what was going on. And then that's when JGJ gets taken.
Yeah, JGJ gets taken at that point. But when the captain goes back to get him, that's when the captain gets taken.
Yeah, and that's when the captain gets like snagged. And this part was super confusing because I didn't realize that the captain and K-Stu were connected.
I didn't either.
And you just see one of them get dragged. You don't see both of them get dragged. So when they end up on some catwalk type thing, I thought there was only one person there, and then it reveals that it was K-Stu, right? And I was like, I thought that was the captain, but I guess it was K-Stu. And then you realize the captain's up there too. You're like, how the fuck did that happen?
Yeah, the first time I watched it, I was super confused. The second time, I kind of figured it out a little bit more because I just was expecting it, But yeah. I had no fucking clue what was going on the first time.
They must have cut the scene where they tethered together.
Yeah, or maybe it was just a throwaway line that Kristen Stewart mumbled through or something. What's happening is Kristen Stewart is on top and she's helping Vincent Cassell, the captain, get up on top. But there's a skeleton guy on there who's jellyfishing over.
Mm-hmm. A squid fishy.
Yeah, squid fishy. And he's sucking up on her faceplate. So Vincent attacks it.
I think he was stabbing it or maybe
he's
just
got
punching
like a knife.
it.
No.
Yeah.
I didn't see the knife in his hand, but he was talking about, I have a knife. Help me get my knife so I can cut us free.
She says, that's not a knife. This is a knife.
But he does start to Crocodile Dundee the back of that squid fishy.
Yeah.
And then the squid fish grabs the line and just starts dragging both of them to the surface.
Right. Well, dragging him, but by proxy dragging her because she's still attached to him.
Yeah.
And this part I thought was so cool. And I think this is kind of a turning point for her because she's like, he's going up too fast and it's going to like depressurize the suit and he's going to implode. And we hear this happening, like there's an alarm going off, like the suit's structural stability is about to break. And it's like 10%, 9%, 8%.
Yeah, we have a suit structure ticking clock at this point.
Exactly. A suit structure clock. Yeah. But he's saying, let go. You have to let go or you're going to die too. And she can't. But he's the one that actually cuts the line or lets go.
Yeah.
Isn't that what happens?
Yes, absolutely.
He cuts the line and then he does an underwater explosion.
Implosion, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you guys watched the explosion of that. It's the air in his suit explodes because it's rising too fast, so that there's the pressure of the air in the suit actually builds up, pushing outward, and it blows up outward and then immediately contracts because the pressure of the water outside pushes it together. It was a very, very cool explosion, but shows that they did a really shitty job engineering those suits to not have a way to let the water or the air on the inside sort of go out.
No,
if the pressure needs to equalize like that.
I think it was like the core of the suit exploding too.
It could be, but my only point was it does explode out and then go back in. It's a really cool effect.
It's basic water science, guys. All right, but she gets to the floor and there's like this giant octopus thing right there, which I don't think is a skeleton guy.
No, it's a legit octopus. Like,
exactly.
What are you doing?
Oh wait, we're at the bottom of the ocean and that's terrifying also.
Right.
Which I really liked. I was like, oh shit. And so now she finds a pipe and she's like following it like they do in Jurassic Park. And she gets to the shepherd drill, which was the abandoned thing we had talked about that they just mentioned earlier.
Mm-hmm. And she does the first thing you should do in this situation, which is take a shower. Why does she do that?
She has to cry.
That is such...
She can't chop wood.
Yeah, she can't chop wood. She's underwater. Yeah.
This moment of the movie felt so ridiculous to me. I was like, why would you take a 30-minute shower?
You're going to use all the hot water, and there's nobody there to light the burner again. Yeah. Well, also, like, how wet does she need to be? You know?
No joke, Jen. It felt like the director was like, okay, well, we haven't seen K-Stu almost naked in 40 minutes, so we need to get her almost naked right here. And then that's when she can go search for another suit to wear because hers got damaged. Which is what happens. But like, there's no need for that other than let's get her naked again.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
We don't need the shower scene for her to look for like another suit. And that's when she finds the captain's locker and find that the death announcement or whatever it was like a program from her funeral or whatever, which is super sad. And I still have some from my dad's, but so like it makes sense that you might keep that sort of a memento, but we don't need the shower scene for her to discover that.
You know what would have been sadder? Her trying to play foosball by herself.
Well, they do show the foosball table. Yeah,
they
absolutely.
do. That would drive home the fact that she's alone, and then it pans up to a sign that says it's against company policy to play foosball on your own. Find friends. But we also see a weird string, like red string map.
Well, it shows all the drill locations.
Yeah. So now she's got a plan. So we get our plan montage and her getting ready montage.
Did you guys see the monsters that were drawn on that map?
Yeah, it was a little ominous, monsterness, which I think was supposed to allude that he was kind of involved in the knowing that there's some kind of monster down here. You know?
Yeah.
None of that pays off.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that because I don't want him to be like a bad character, you know? Like, I don't want him to be like the character in Deep Blue Sea who actually caused all of this because of his careless actions.
You mean the doctor?
Yeah. But, like, that's the thing. If it's just going to be a mention, like, why include it, you know? Yeah. Anyways, so she's got her plan montage, and she's also kind of mad, and she sees an old yellow suit. So now she gets out. So she's gotten this... Is it the yellow suit or is it the white suit?
It's a yellow suit.
Okay. So she's found Old Yeller and she's walking around on the bottom. And I like how she's just like, I'm just going to keep walking and talking and we'll see. So
because she wants to meet up with the survivors from the Scooby team, if you will.
And she's just talking. She's like, if anybody hears me, keep going. And she does see Emily, who's talking. She starts to hear Emily talking to Smith, and it's really sweet. And so Emily is dragging Smith along the ocean.
Who's doing sort of the same thing for herself and for JGJ. She's just sort of talking to keep him awake and, sort of to pass the time or whatever. Yeah.
Right. And probably to keep her kind of still mentally present.
Oh, yeah.
But she's scared at first. I think she doesn't realize that it's K-Stu at first. But then, like, this is, I think, kind of the turning point for Emily, too. Like, when she doesn't have any more options.
She becomes a badass.
She does. And okay, so we were talking about how we wanted more of Emily. And like, I think the reason I don't necessarily need more from her is because I really love how she and Kate and Nora's relationship works together. And it almost kind of feels like this passing the torch thing, that I really enjoy. So I don't know. I think it would have been interesting to follow Emily through the end of the movie. But I love that it's like she's empowering her, but it's not like, there's no like cat fighting. There's no like, they're just supporting each other. And I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, really the only thing that even comes close to like a cat fight, quote unquote, would be when K-Stu jumps on top of Emily when Emily thinks she's being attacked. And she's just like, no, it's me. It's fine. It's fine.
Right. And that's just, I think she just doesn't know what's going on. You know? Because her air's low too, because she didn't have like that 35-minute cry shower that Kristen Stewart got.
Right.
So now they're both dragging JGJ along the bottom of the ocean and he's still alive. He's just all passed out or whatever. And this is when we get this exposition scene about K-Stu's fiance. And I wrote that it was Smith's best friend because this is when they're talking about it. But I mean, it doesn't really matter.
I think it's great that we all have three different stories. Like each one of us has a different perspective. Because Mikey thinks it was TJ Miller's character. And I think it was the captain. And I have no idea which one of us is right because the dialogue and the writing in this is not great. And you just don't know. Yeah. But to your point, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter because he said she made him promise or he promised not to ever talk about it, which would make sense to why Emily doesn't know what they're talking about either, But so she had a fiance, and this is when I had a hard time fucking understanding what she was saying. Basically, the fiance died.
Yes.
He drowned. He went swimming, and they couldn't find him.
They went scuba diving, yeah.
And she was really upset, and she's talking about being powerless and not being able to change anything, which I think is really the point of this, But they do eventually get to the Roebuck, and they get it to the doorway, which is like red light vestibule area, and they see that
very cool shot.
Mm-hmm. It is really very cool, yeah.
And I like this sequence, and this is the there are tons of these things, and it's just
the squid fishes. The squid fishes are just hanging asleep above the walkway into the Roebuck.
Yeah, they look like jellyfish bats.
Yeah, they do look like bats, but there's no gravity underwater, so it doesn't matter. But they're like...
There's still gravity, it's just in water.
That's fair. Or else you wouldn't sink. That's a good point, Mikey. Yeah. but they decide to walk, under them as best they can because they're asleep.
And they have to. That's how they're standing between them and the door, yeah.
But what we didn't know is that the whole time they were walking, there was actually a low oxygen ticking clock that was about to go off. And it goes off in a very spectacularly bad way.
It does, yeah. And so, because Emily's alarm goes off, and then Smith like hears it and is like, that's fucked up, which I done.
Yeah.
But so they're still walking, and so because what else are they going to do? And so Nora, one of the things scratches along her face, and I love how it just kind of barely clicked a little bit.
Yeah, it's like barely waking up, but it's slowly waking up. Yeah.
But it's so creepy. I don't know if we're doing justice how creepy a lot of this
And
stuff
she took a
is.
giant flare gun from the other place.
Yeah, which
yeah,
is about to
with
come back
two-
into it's about to come back into play here.
We should just go ahead and say that before the scene starts.
And so it wakes up and it's trying to like smash her. And I think this is the moment that I was thinking about earlier, that is the inversion of
It's trying to
Alien
smash her.
because-
It's literally engulfing her. It's like
Well,
swallowing
before
her.
that,
It's
though,
eating
it
her,
smashes her around, and then it goes and it eats her, and it goes and like surrounds her, which is like the opposite of what Alien does. And she is the one that bursts out of this thing with her flare gun, which I love. I thought that was a really cool.
Once it does get down over her arm, she like lifts her arm up inside with the flare gun and shoots the flare gun, and it literally just kills the thing instantly. Like goes through him to the top of him.
And that's one of the things I think is so cool about these suits, you know, because like in a movie like Anaconda or something like that would kill you immediately. But because they're in these super fucked up durable suits, we can see this thing like sucking on her face, and it's not like we can still see it without her dying. You know, it's just really cool.
I mean, she's totally inside of it.
Yeah, she is. She busts out of it, but there are still a ton more, and now they're all like about to get her, except they hear something and they all look and they're like, "Ugh," and she shoots her other flare at it, and we just see a shadow of this huge monster.
It's awesome.
It's Cthulhu for sure.
It is Cthulhu, yeah, and that has been confirmed by the director too.
Oh, has it? Yeah.
So we see him, and he's got this huge like monster face with like octopus chin, and so there's another explosion, and then they wake up inside. This is when I kind of lost the thread of what the hell.
She loses consciousness.
Yeah, she loses consciousness because her oxygen runs out or whatever.
Cthulhu like brings down his hand and causes a big shockwave.
Oh yeah, because Cthulhu has an explosive hand or whatever. Maybe
right.
he hit something that exploded. You don't really know. You don't really need to know.
Shit gets fucked up. She gets thrown, and then Emily comes out and saves her.
Yeah.
And pulls her in too. Yeah, and so her oxygen level is low too, and so Emily can't get her helmet off and starts just smashing it with like a fire extinguisher.
They get back
thing.
inside, decompress, but they couldn't get her helmet off. Yeah,
And then they eventually do get her out of the suit, but I mean, they just didn't have enough time to get her out of the suit, you know?
Exactly, yeah, because she has to breathe.
And that's why I think Emily's a badass. She's awesome.
She is.
Right?
But so now they're all safe. They're all, I think JGJ's a little fucked up, but they're all out of their suits and they're in this Roebuck.
This is my favorite moment because they're looking out over the drill. JGJ just looks at because Cthulhu's settled inside the drill, and he's like, "What in the hell?"
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. How long was I passed out?
Yeah, right.
So they get into the control room and they're seeing Cthulhu, and this is when we start to see a lot of him and just how big he is. And so they're like, well, fuck this. So they go to the pods and they find out there are 3 pods. Hooray!
Yay!
But one of them is defective.
And Cthulhu is destroying the drill, so they're like, "We got to get out of here," because it's like it's all being torn apart by Cthulhu.
And so, but Nora's the only one that sees that one of them is defective.
Right.
And so they get JGJ in, and he's like, no, I'll go last, guys, right? Yeah. And they're like, no, you're too fucked up. And I love that moment because they're both like taking care of him, you know?
And he is getting oxygen, but he's still sort of oxygen deprived. So he's not like in his right state of mind, and really probably is not safe for him to stay behind, even if there were 3 safe pods, you know?
Exactly.
No, he's not 100%.
But so they send him off. And they have their sweet little moment. She gives him the rabbit.
Yeah.
And then Emily's like, okay, you go next. Because Emily now is in badass mode. And she's like, okay, go ahead. I'm going to take care of this shit. And that's when she realizes by Kristen Stewart's acting that like something is wrong with this pod.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then they're having that moment of like, is it going to be you or me? And Kristen Stewart just punches her. And
Punches her in the fucking face. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I think kind of completes her arc of like sacrificing herself, you know? And so sends Emily, and Emily feels really bad, but she's also, I think, kind of, you know, accepting of it too.
Yeah. Well, she goes.
She does. Yeah. So they send Emily up. And so now K-Stu's she's sitting sadly in the water watching.
This part of the movie really fucking bothered me because if under regular circumstances the escape pod wasn't working, you would call a mechanical engineer to come fix it. And it wasn't that the escape pod didn't have power. In fact, the red light, green light to show if it's working is flickering back and forth. So there may be a very easy fix that she could have done to fix that. but she didn't do it. She just sat there and was like, I guess I'll just kill myself because why the fuck not? I mean, I shouldn't just fix this, which I clearly know how to do because I was able to unstick a door and I was able to like jerry rig a bulkhead to close. Like she easily could have fixed that.
Well, and I also think there's the motivation of not wanting, because what we see is she goes to like the radar thing and she sees, I called them the children, like all the little skeleton men.
Yeah, the squid fishes,
starting to go to the pods. And so we see that there is motivation for her to stay behind and try to blow them all up. But there's not any of that mentioned before she has decided not to try to fix that pod. And that's where I think there's a little bit of a
It is positioned as she would have left if that pod worked, but she doesn't ever try and make that pod work. And since, well, I may as well kill all these monsters while I'm down here dying anyway, which I sort of like the way it ended. But I don't understand why she wouldn't have tried to fix it, and that bothered me a little bit.
Yeah, or at least like let us see that it is irreparable, but because it's just ambiguous.
Here's what bothered me about this scene.
I like how we're focused on a thing that bothered us, but it's not the right thing.
It's not the right thing. So then she decides...
I don't want to hear about the layout of this spaceship.
No. So then she decides, I'm going to kill these things before it kills my friends. She can just overload the reactor and cause an underwater nuclear explosion, and there's not even a password to enter in this computer.
No. Yeah.
She just flicks a switch and blows up everybody. That's not good design.
No.
That's how good of a mechanic she is.
Yeah.
A mechanical engineer. Yeah, she wills it. But yeah, she just decides, and this is when we hear a little bit of the voiceover where she's talking about how it's like a lot of energy with nowhere to go.
And it's very young adult novel dialogue.
It kind of is, and I like it, but
you lose your sense of time in the dark, so let's light this shit up.
It just kind of, I feel like it's just kind of jarring. It doesn't, it kind of fits, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
And she's kind of talking about saying the same things that she was saying at the beginning, but I like how they show this.
But powerless is just a feeling. Not a not reality.
And it's time to stop feeling and start doing, which I think is interesting. I don't know how much I like
but that doesn't at all agree with her story arc at all. That's why it should have been Emily, because Emily does have that story arc. Nora does not.
No, she is action oriented throughout the entire thing. There's never a time when she's afraid to do something, except when she's afraid to sacrifice someone else. So I guess maybe she's deciding to sacrifice herself.
I mean, she sacrificed those two guys at the very beginning without a second thought. So,
well, yeah, that's true. But as we're talking about this, I feel like there's so much lifting you have to do to make the narrative fall into place that I feel like just a couple more edits could have tightened it up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But all that to say, I don't really notice it while I'm watching the movie because it's just fun.
It's just going too fast. Yeah.
I did notice it while watching the movie, but it didn't make me hate the movie.
Right. Yeah. It didn't take me out of it in any moments. And I love this explosion thing. Yeah. I think it's really cool. I love how we see Cthulhu. We see a lot of his body at this point, including the wings. We start to see him kind of crawl out, but he still gets kind of overtaken by it. And it's just the water going up, and then
it's a big ass explosion underwater, and it's awesome looking.
Yeah.
Right. It is really cool. And then we see, I think this is as the closing credits are happening.
It is. See, because at that point, that's sort of and that's the movie, right?
Yeah.
But there are some end credits where you do get a little bit of the continued story.
Which is that Emily and Smith made it, and they're trying to cover up. Oh, also Rabbit made it.
Did it bother anybody else that they showed a picture of them measuring the rabbit? Why would they have measured the rabbit? That makes no sense. And why would that be so newsworthy? It's in a news clipping.
I know, it's science. I know.
Unless the people investigating think the rabbit was behind it, there's no need for that.
Was the rabbit behind it?
You'll never know, Mikey, until the sequel.
Well, okay, and so that's the thing, because I feel like if it were 10 years down the road, and this was the first of a Cthulhu-connected universe, and they had taken all of these seeds and expanded on it, I feel like that, it's almost like that's what they're doing. But it just doesn't come together enough for any of this stuff to make sense.
Sort of like a Cloverfield universe?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Or if you don't have any clue what the fuck Thor's hammer is, and you see that at the end of Iron Man, then you're like, what the fuck is that?
They should have just called this Underwater Cloverfield.
But then it couldn't have been Cthulhu. It would have had to have been one of the other monsters or whatever.
You don't know.
I mean, that's fair.
Maybe Cloverfield is Cthulhu.
Boom.
Let's do some final thoughts now that we've talked about it and we've discussed it. So what did you guys think about it overall?
I really loved it. I think like there are some things I could pick apart, and I said my big 3 things that bugged me, but I did really enjoy the movie. Like none of the things that I didn't like about it took me out of it and kept me from not liking it.
I dig this movie. I think it's a great action, science fiction, horror action film. I really like this movie, and it moves at such a fast pace. You don't really have time to think about the problems of the movie.
Yeah.
Now that we've kind of analyzed it, I feel like maybe it's really good because I plugged the holes with my head. But I still think it's really entertaining.
Yeah, I think this movie is utterly watchable. I don't think you should seek it out to watch it, but if it's on, sit down and enjoy it. But it's one that I'll probably forget almost immediately after this episode.
Well, one of the things I really like about it is I feel like it's a feminist movie that doesn't like rub your face in it, because it's very empowering.
I don't think it's overly feminist. Yeah,
I don't think so either, but
I don't necessarily disagree, Jen. But yeah, it doesn't smack you in the face with it like Assassination Nation does.
Yeah, exactly. But I love that movie. But it's a great depiction of female characters. Like this is the way I wish more movies wrote female characters.
I think it's a good depiction. I think it could have been great if they would have tweaked some of the things you and I talked about.
Yeah, if they had fixed the writing, I think it could have been an awesome movie. And I think it's just a good movie because the writing's pretty bad, but the story is okay and the effects are fucking dope.
Yeah.
I hope I never see this again just because it was pretty scary. And it's the kind of scary that really gets me. I hate open water. I hate jump scares, and I hate found footage. So anytime they were out in the open water, it was found footage from their helmet cam, and there were a shitload of jump scares. So it was fucking terrifying to me. But I don't think overall the movie was horrible. I just don't think it nailed it,
Yeah.
Well, let's talk some box office.
Oh, right. Box office.
So what do you think the budget for this movie was?
$30 million.
All right, Mikey, let's take a guess. What do you think?
$30 million and $1.
Oh, geez.
So the budget for this movie was $65 million.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That's not good. This movie is not getting a sequel.
No, it is not. It was filmed in 2017, and we sort of talked about this before. I thought this was going to fall under box office, but I think I might be stealing a fun fact, Jen.
You might be. That's okay.
It was filmed in 2017, and because of the Fox-Disney merger, it was shelved.
Yep.
And then eventually when the Fox-Disney merger went through, Disney was like, whatever, just put it out. So they put it out. It was in January, and the COVID stuff happened sort of around that time.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think it made? Let's do in its opening weekend first. So in its opening weekend, what do you guys think it made? Again, it was January 10th, early January of this year.
$17 million.
Okay.
I think it did $15 million opening weekend and then $30 million overall.
Well, we'll talk about that when we get there. So Underwater was 7th in its first week out, and it made $7 million its opening weekend. It was up against 1917, Star Wars, the most recent Star Wars film, Jumanji, Like a Boss, Just Mercy, and Little Women. And all 6 of those movies beat it. So Underwater did beat Frozen, Knives Out, Spies in Disguise, and then the Grudge remake that had also come out.
Yeah, but a lot of those were old and or about to be in the Oscars.
This is why they call January the dumping ground for movies. If you have a release in January, it's either because you're an Oscar winner that did not get a huge release, so they're re-releasing it to get that Oscar buzz, or it's a shitty movie in the eyes of the studio, and they're just trying to get it out.
Yeah, or they've got a spot they need to fill, and they have this.
Right. And that's sort of what happened with this. Now, Mikey, you said you thought it made about $30 million domestically. Is that what your guess was?
Yeah, I guess, but now I'm thinking that's a little high.
Do you want to re-guess, Mikey? What do you think? What do you guys think it made domestically?
17.
I'm sticking with 17.
Yeah.
Mikey's stealing my number, but I'm sticking with it.
It's exactly 17. It made $17.29 million.
Nice.
Domestically. It made another 21 internationally, putting it up at almost $40 million. And then it made $2.1 million on domestic DVD and Blu-ray sales.
Full disclosure, I think I may have accidentally read 17.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
Wow.
I was reading Wikipedia, and I usually try to skip over, but sometimes I see it.
It happens. So it did not make its budget back. And because it was shelved for 3 years, the studio that actually made it had to pay interest on the loans they took out to finance it. So it actually was even a bigger box office bomb than what the numbers look like, because the
Ooh.
studio that produced it couldn't make any money off of it until Disney decided to put it out. So the company really got screwed by that Fox-Disney merger. And also the fact that it wasn't a great movie and probably would never have made much money. I did read an article about, it was box office related, Jen. I didn't want to usurp your fun facts, but they said that they probably missed out about $100,000 in revenue because of the COVID-19 shutdowns. But that sort of stuff didn't happen until March, right? And this movie was already trailing to be out of theaters by like the first or second week of March anyway, because it wasn't making much money anyway. A lot of theaters had dropped it out of its rotation. Like it went from 3,000 theaters, and by the time COVID-19 shut everything down, it was in 61 theaters. But Jen, do you have some fun facts for us?
I do have some fun facts. Okay.
Hit us with your fun fact.
So we have talked a little bit about some of this. It takes place in the year 2050.
Oh, does it?
So, yeah, I mean, I think Smith's parents were maybe meeting right now, maybe falling in love right now.
Having unprotected sex. I honestly thought it took place in 1985 because she looks at a Polaroid picture at one point.
It's retro.
It's retro, Todd. Yeah,
She's a hipster.
Apparently, yeah.
So I had mentioned earlier that TJ Miller he has an allegation. I'm not going to go too into this because I read an article about this and it messed with me. Like this story is a little bit disturbing. But he has a pretty credible accusation of sexually and physically assaulting a woman while he was in college. He denies it.
So this is from like a long time ago then.
Shit,
before he was even famous. So he was always a shitty dude. Fuck.
Yeah, I was reading some stories about him like intimidating other women who had been assaulted by their boyfriends or like threatening to ruin careers. So he just sounds like it's one of those things. It's like, fuck, I really want to like you.
I know,
but I can't, But so I wonder, and so that had come out after this was filmed, but before it was released. So I think that might have been part of the decision to just dump it in January too. It's like, let's just get this thing out, because you can't spend that much money on a movie and not do anything with it.
And not try and get some of it back, right? A $20 million loss is much better than a $65 million loss, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot more to that story, and I just don't want to say it here because I don't think we need to have all the details, and it could be a little triggering.
But if you want to know, Google it.
Exactly. The information is out there.
That sucks, man. Fuck that.
I know, man. Yeah, it just pisses me off, Not at the people who accused him of him for doing that shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to make that clear because I don't want it to be like I wish I didn't know. I wish it didn't happen.
Yeah, I wish I could like him.
Exactly. Yeah. So Kristen Stewart shaved her head for this role, which makes me love her. They wanted her to be barefoot in the opening scene. And if you noted, like her character is barefoot through most of the movie when she's not wearing a suit.
Yeah.
But I think for liability, they were worried that she would cut her feet. So they actually gave her shoes that they painted flesh toned.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. That was funny. The suits that they wore were like 140 pounds. So they were huge and they were airtight. So they had a really hard time hearing the director sometimes when they were wearing them. I thought that was interesting.
You'd think they'd get like radios or something to put inside them so they can hear each other. Yeah.
The characters in the movie can hear.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's like it's almost there, but just a couple of tweaks I think would have been really effective,
Yeah.
The rabbit was originally intended to be a real rabbit that he was going to like carry through. And they actually never and they were just going to sub in like a CGI rabbit or something. And they never told TJ Miller that it wasn't going to be a real rabbit. He thought it was going to be a real rabbit.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah. So, and it's funny, like every time you look at it, like, and I didn't notice this until after I'd read this fun fact that they're like handling the stuffed rabbit like it's a real rabbit.
Yes.
Nobody's like throwing it at anybody, which I think is interesting because they thought it was going to be a real rabbit in the end.
That is super interesting.
I know. Okay, so the Marianas Trench that we were talking about, or the Mariana Trench, I think, is a real place. I think it's located under or around Guam, which I think technically would put it under U.S. territory, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But it is the deepest location on Earth.
It's also the bluest location on Earth.
Awesome. But it's 7 miles deep. And if you placed Mount Everest at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the peak would still be covered by 7,000 feet of water.
Jesus.
To put in perspective how deep that is. Yeah.
That's insane.
I know. And yeah, like you were mentioning earlier, we have not actually been able to explore as deep as it is. So there could be a Cthulhu down there. This is technically a Cthulhu mythos or mythos story. And that is the connected universe originated from H.P. Lovecraft about Cthulhu, who is the central creature in the story, The Call of Cthulhu from 1928. And I also want to go on record and say Lovecraft is pretty racist.
Yeah.
So when you look, I just want to make sure we say that. A lot of writers have continued to write stories in the Cthulhu mythos, and they've taken a lot of those elements out.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. And they can do that because Cthulhu is in public domain, so they can do whatever the fuck they want. But so it was originally supposed to be like a whale-like creature. And I think they changed it to Cthulhu in post-production because, I mean, why the fuck not? And it's cool. And for people that are really into Lovecraft, like, you don't see a whole lot of Lovecraft stuff. And so it's one of those things where it's like, oh, my God, it's Cthulhu, you know? I also want to say I'm not a huge Lovecraft fan, so I don't know a ton about Cthulhu, just in case I mess some of the stuff up. And if you are really into that and you know a lot about it, please feel free to reach out and share some of this stuff. He's described as a monster of vaguely anthropoid outline with an octopus-like head whose face was a mass of feelers, a scaly, rubbery-looking body, prodigious claws on hind and forefeet, and long, narrow wings behind it. And it's said to be so terrible that it destroys the sanity of those who see it. And that's the one thing where we've talked about how you can't see things clearly a lot of times. And that's the one time that I like it, you know, because I think some of the stories I've read, it breaks your mind if you see, like, your mind cannot comprehend how terrible and scary he is. So he's supposed to be the leader or the priest of the old ones. And those are species that came to Earth from the stars before humans, and they went dormant. And they had a city that slipped under the Earth's crust beneath the Pacific Ocean. And they like telepathically communicate with some humans, and some still remember, or they like are aware of them. And so there's a cult of Cthulhu, and they will try to awaken him and make the city rise. So that's kind of more about the whole mythos of him.
Sure.
He's also seen in The Nameless City and The Whisperer in the Darkness. But yeah, if you know more about him and Lovecraft in general, like I'd love to know more. It's just not something I personally have explored.
I don't know anything about that universe.
And those are my fun facts.
Well, thank you for your fun facts, Jen.
Well, you're very welcome.
So let's do that scary scale.
Hey, listeners, our scary scale is a scale we use to rank how scary we thought the movie was. It's not the quality of the movie, it's how scared we were today when we watched it. Our 1 example is Ghostbusters. Our 10 example is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right, Todd, what you got?
I'm going to give it a 6.
What?
Yeah, it was super fucking jump scary, man. And that's really gets me. I mean, I can't give it below a 5 because I literally got scared so much I came out of my seat. And then when I returned to it, I sat on the remote and turned the TV off, Mikey.
Yeah, those jump scares are no joke.
Yeah, they are real.
Mikey, what are you giving it?
A 1.
It's also your second time seeing it. It was my first time seeing it. Yeah.
It scared me the first time.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give it a 4.
Okay.
Partly because I have a fear of open water.
Same.
And so just the ocean just freaks me out.
Yeah.
And I feel like the jump scares are effective, and there's enough like just regular being in the ocean things that will kill you that you're consistently on edge. You know, like we just saw a giant fucking octopus, you know?
Yeah, out of
Those
nowhere.
things can be mean. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 4. I think this is a really effective movie despite all the stuff we talked about. Like, it's scary, it's fun, it's good.
Yeah, I think if it comes on and you watch it, you're not going to be upset you watched it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this week you guys made me watch Underwater. What are you guys making me watch next week?
Next week we are continuing Aquatic Horror Month.
Right.
And this was a Mikey pick, so I'm going to let Mikey introduce it.
Ooh.
I picked one of the Abyss Alien ripoffs that, Alien Underwater ripoffs that came out in like the late 80s, early 90s. There's like 4 of them, but I let Jen pick. We watched the trailers.
Oh, yeah. And I'd never heard of either of them, so I was like, okay.
I think I've seen both of them, and they're both like dumb in a way that's going to be great.
So we are watching Deep Star 6 next week.
I've never heard of this movie, so I have no idea what to expect.
Have you heard of Alien?
Yes, we did it. Mikey, you were on that episode.
Yeah, I know. This is that underwater and also bad.
I'm on board. Let's do this.
How can we lose?
Yeah. That sounds great. So, guys, your homework for this week is to watch Deep Sea 6.
Deep Star 6.
Sorry.
And Underworld, too.
All right, Mikey, you ready to read a review?
Nope.
All right, well, while Mikey gets ready to read a review, let me tell you guys how you can have your review read on the podcast, and that is simply to leave us a 5-star text review. And all you have to do is go to Apple iTunes, write in a little message that Mikey can have a little fun reading, and give us that 5 stars, and we will read it on the podcast.
It's just that easy.
So, Mikey, do you have a review for us?
I have a couple.
Yeah, we got a lot this week.
Okay, Roof says, my new obsession. Okay, I discovered the Horror Virgin on May 12th, 2020.
Oh.
Through comments
Wow.
on another podcast.
Oh.
It's now May 31st, and I've worked my way through almost the entire back catalog.
Wait. Okay, so when did she
That's a
discover us?
lot.
May 12th to 31st.
Holy shit. And she's already listened to all of them? Or almost all of them?
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's
Having
insane.
just finished episode 103.
Oh, so she's almost completely caught up.
Yeah, I'm sad to
Wow.
be reaching the point where I'll have to wait between episodes of
Aw.
Jen, Mikey, and Todd.
That's so
Aw.
sweet.
Excellent summarizing, analyzing, and lovingly mocking horror movies that I'm far
Aw.
too scared to ever actually watch.
Oh, she's a horror virgin like me.
I don't think I'll.
There are dozens of us.
I don't think I'll ever laugh as much as I did listening to the House 2 episode.
Dude, I don't think I'll ever laugh as much as I did making the House 2 episode.
I know.
Oh my God.
insane.
but I continue to wonder what moment in each episode will inevitably cause me to spit take.
Nice.
They've kept me a company on my commute to my essential job and while
Aw.
stuck at home on days off. But
Aw.
even once everything settles down, I'll still be listening. Thanks for the distractions and laughter. I continue.
Thank you for that essential work that you're doing.
She's not done
Yes.
yet.
Oh shit, sorry. Excuse me.
I continue to force my husband and anyone else I can to join me in the Horror Virgin experience.
Oh, I love
Aw,
it.
thank
Thanks
you.
for
5
spreading the good
stars.
news that is
Mhm.
the horror virgin.
That's right. Such a sweet review.
Well, thank you very much, Roof, for an amazing review. We appreciate it, guys. And make sure you leave a review so we can read yours on the podcast. All right, we are a member of the Consequence Podcast Network, so do us a favor and check out their shows like The Losers Club, The Assembly, Kyle Meredith With, This Must Be the Gig, Halloweenies.
Fifth Dimension, The Opus, The Assembly,
Yeah.
and Ghost Echo.
Yeah, absolutely. Check out all those awesome shows, guys. And also check out their website, Consequence of Sound. And if you want to check out our shit, go to horrorvirgin.com or follow us on socials at horrorvirgin.
You want to see our shit? Just come to our website or whatever.
You
I mean,
always laugh at that.
I say
Mikey.
that every week and you lose your shit every time. It's like,
I think it's
I
so
know.
funny.
you can also check us out on socials at Horror Virgin. And if you want to follow us individually, check out Jen at Jen Ferratu with 2 N's. Mikey is at M Randolph 24, and I am at Todd J Awesome. And guys, if you want to help financially support the show, please do by going to patreon.com/horrorvirgin. We got a lot of great levels and a lot of great things, a lot of great bonus episodes, and we're about to record one of those right now.
Yeah.
So if you want to get that content, any of the video content we put up, the listener requests that we do monthly, and every level can suggest movies to do and vote on movies in the listener request. So you get in on that at patreon.com/horrorvirgin. But if you can't or don't want to financially support the show, but you still want some daily free content from us, go over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/horrorvirgin, which we link pretty much every week. So if you don't want to remember what the URL is, just look for that link on our socials and you'll find it. But it's an awesome, great, super supportive, over 820 member growing community. It's
So thank you for joining us for Underwater and for
Yeah.
Aquatic Horror. I'm Jen.
I'm Mikey.
And I'm your horror virgin, Todd, guys.
Bye.
Have an amazing, safe week, even though the world is ending. Bye.
Bye.
Stay safe out there.
Protest nerds.
Yep.
That they really ripped off the Abyss if they kept that rabbit being an actual rabbit, because there's a mouse in the Abyss that does
Yep.
the exact same thing.
Yep, it would have been a complete ripoff, except they didn't ever drown the rabbit to prove the underwater breathing serum to work. But yeah,
I
that
wish
part
we
in
could
that
do.
movie is brutal. It's a
I-
great movie, though.
Oh, we should do the Abyss. I fucking
When
love
Ed
that
Harris punches that woman back to life, oh.
movie. You never stop fighting for anything, you bitch.
Consequence Podcast Network.